Good afternoon, everybody. This is the second webinar. This webinar is called Homeless in Our Society, Volume 2. Let me share my presentation, everybody. For Homelessness in Our Society, Volume 2, presented by Latricia Johnson. Welcome to my webinar. On the first screen, it's talking about what are the statistics of homelessness in 2020 before the pandemic and right now. So here we go with the statistics. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and make it a slideshow. Okay, let me go back to the second part. And here's the link. So, homelessness.org, homelessness in America, homelessness statistics status of homelessness in 2020. So, homelessness in America. And I talked about the homeless in our society last year, and I said I was going to go back and dig a little deeper. And by the pandemic going on, I want to come back on here and talk about this again. It's been a while since I talked about this, and I told those who were on the main page when I did this broadcast Facebook Live last year that I was going to come back on it. I'm going to share this presentation on the mainstream, on the TTS 1000, as well as On Time Ministry, so everybody can get a feel of what I was talking about for those who tuned into that particular subject. So as you can see, homeless in our society, 17 out of every 10,000 people in America are experiencing homeless on the single night in January 2019, which was a year ago. It's a year ago from now. And as the statistics start rising, these are numbers from 2017 to 2019, and how the numbers continue to rise. And the highest number overall, it look as 567,715. And it's talking about individual people and families, chronic home illnesses, veterans, and uncompensated youth. And as you look at these numbers, they're all pretty high, very all. And then they have the large subpopulation, which represents homelessness. They're talking about individual males unsheltered, and they're talking about the highest number are males in 2019. And then it goes to the females, transgender, and gender not conforming. And it's talking about the most risk in the content. As you can read, Pacific Island, Native Island are most likely to be homeless in America, which compares to overall racial ethnic groups. 160 people experience homelessness out of every 10,000 compared to the nation of 17 out of every 10,000. And these are just nationwide numbers. And as you can see in 2019, the white is like the first, blacks, and then Hispanics, multiracial, Native, and Pacific, and then Asian as the numbers go down. And they said prioritizing the right. These are just statistics, everybody. You can go on this website and check it out for yourself, but I just kind of want you to see what's going on. The reason why I'm talking about homeless in our society, particularly because of this pandemic. And I talked about it last year, and by the pandemic putting a big impact in homelessness, how are they affected by this? And you have to think about it. Hey, I'm going through some things in my life, but how are the homeless people being affected by those things like that? And what it's talking about here from the CDC's perspective is some individuals are at high risk of becoming seriously ill from COVID-19. This includes older adults, age 65 and older. However, people experience homelessness age faster than housed people. Research indicate they have physical condition that mirrors them of 15 to 20 years, older than them. One single day, an estimate of 202,623 single adults experience homelessness all over the age of 50, suggesting they may be equally vulnerable to become seriously ill during the pandemic crisis. And this is something that I want to talk about because it is serious, and it's very serious, and it's very scary to know that them being homeless and being without shelter and being exposed to this is a very high risk. And it's saddening to see that they're going through this. They already was going through it before the pandemic, but it's 10 times worse for them now. It's like they just cannot get a break. They're trying so hard to survive each and every day, and now they're even struggling even harder during this pandemic. And as you look here, they're having studies that's showing that a recent study of sample unsheltered individuals from across the country finding 84% of self-reporting existing physical conditions. Only 19% of the people in shelters said the same. So the statistics are talking about, wait a minute, what's going on? So let me show you a sample on this link and get to the bottom of it and go back to my presentation. So this is the California, and this was October 2019. And it's basically giving you a summary of what was the statistics and the ideas of it. You can read through it very quickly. And it's basically giving you some background on this footages and research questions about certain things, acknowledgement, data, meteorologists, snapshots of simple populations and findings. So basically, this is something you can thumb through with yourself, basically looking through it. I'm just kind of scrolling down very quickly to get you to kind of see what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go very deep into this, but basically talking about the resource and the evidence and all of the stuff that they're talking about and all the collection stuff that they have came into tune with. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my main screen, and this is just like a policy brief that I just shared with everybody. So moving on, trends in homelessness. Compared to the previous year, homelessness increased 3% in 2019, pointing into the counts. This marks the third straight year of nation-level increase. Despite the negative growth, but the long-term trending has downward. Overall, homelessness has decreased by 12% since 2007. The nationwide data collection begins. The current COVID-19 crisis has potentially diminished or completely wiped out this modest growth. So COVID-19 kind of changed the percentage of everything. So I'm going to go to the state of Florida because that's where I am at. If it takes me there, let me go to the Florida statistics and kind of hit Georgia and New York. So they said in the state of Florida, we have a total since 2018 is 28,328. So let me go to the state of, where am I at? GA. So I'm just kind of thumbing through and I'm gonna hit California and New York since I'm on here. Oh, where is Georgia? Let me take the time and look very slowly. Very right there, right in my face. So it's 10,443. Then they have California, which is 151,000. Excuse me, my mouth's gonna get crazy. Wow. It just basically just stopped me at my track. Okay. 151,278. And in the state of New York, it's 92,091 people. And these numbers could get higher. And this is 2019. So imagine what the numbers look like right now. Okay. So it's basically just telling you the different minorities and the different perspectives, and then each state has different numbers and how many people are homeless during this whole thing. And then this one part talks about the count. It includes such as Florida, California, New York, Texas, and all commons of care, serving New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Texas, and balance of state. These are things that you should be really aware of. And in the state of Florida, from 2019, looked like it was 28,328, and California California has the highest rate of homelessness. Like literally, it's like really high. And it goes into detail about how highest house causing the highest rent burdens. And then talks about the COVID-19 again. Counts rates typically offer useful information about challenges facing homeless system. They reflect the number of people who need homeless services during the current pandemic. This is a new challenge. The number of people who contracted an infected illness while needing homeless services. So quarantine, social isolation, stay-at-home orders are difficult, if not possible to follow while you don't have a home. And this is it's destructive. It's very horrible. Though the Center of Control Prevent has offered guidance on how to best serve people in shelters and unsheltered, meet COVID-19 related health needs is putting new strains on healthless service system, especially those with a large number of affected consumers. So those who are out there are really affected pretty bad by this. And then it talks about the predicted number of COVID-19 cases that will rise among the experiencing in a nation's counties. So let me click this link. Let me click this link and then go back to the chart. And as I look at it, the internet is slow today. This article right here is basically just talking about overall estimated emergency and observing quarantine beds needed for the U.S. homeless population related to COVID-19 exposed by counties, projecting hospitalization, intensive care units, and mortality. That means, yes. So as I let you read through the article briefly about it, you can download the report for yourself to kind of get a little bit more in depth with the details of it. But I just wanted to come to this link briefly to kind of just show you what's being said. So the report is right here on this website. And when you get to this, you click right here on the predicted numbers of COVID-19 cases. And it basically gives you a statistic of it. So the predictive cases, as you can see. So you have severe, high, medium, moderate, low, and none. And as you look at the United States map and how these things are color coded, you can see the ones that are high risk. You have a high risk here, you have one up here, you have a little small one right here, and you have the medium ones here, and all the rest of them are pretty much moderate to none. So majority of it is kind of like moderate, low, and the high points are right here, a little bit there, and right there. Homeless assistance in America. And it goes and talking about temporary assisting and housing, excuse me, and it talking about emergency safe haven and transition homes had decreased by 9%. These are statistic figures, everybody. And as you go through the statistic, and this is a nationwide database, this is not primary of the state of Florida, this is just talking about states overall. And it talks about the bed shortages and the families and the youth and all of this content they're talking about. And then they're also talking about the early estimating of 400,000 new units are needed to prevent the spread of the virus and care for the sick. These accommodations will allow for social distance quarantine, isolating people who are typically in crowded shelter settings or living in unsheltered areas. Permanent housing, and it's talking about that as the increase, and it goes in part about that, how they're trying to invest in this. And they look at the numbers here from emergency, safe haven, transitional housing, other permanent supported housing, and rapid rehousing. And it goes on and on. And it's a lot of content for us to read about and a lot of stuff that we should know. And it's talking about article, the one I say it again, and I'm gonna click on Florida again. They have 11,595 of emergency bed shelters. In the state of Georgia, 4,702. California, 31,028. State of New York, 83,571. And as you click on every state, you begin to realize what's really going on. And the common form of assistance, and basically go in detail and read this information and inform yourself about these things, because this is really saddening to see this. And in my next presentation, I'm going to show you the people that's talking about how they're coping and how they're dealing with these things that is happening right now during this whole pandemic, being in the circumstances that they're in. And the video footage that I'm going to show you is going to be people that are going to be interviewed and talked about how they're feeling and how they're dealing with this. Population of rise of homelessness over time. And as you see the slump, and it says severe housing costs bury living in property and doubled up living in poverty. And it's a lot that you can see here. It's like absolutely out. Here we go. So we have double up living property people in Florida. Number is 2018, 3,000, 447. Then you got 170,058 in Georgia. California has 490,805. And the state of New York has 234,880. So these numbers are very, very high in terms of that. And as you get in more detail about this, it talks about the rate in homelessness and the rate populations. This is some very serious things that we're dealing with at this very time. So as I move on to the next article, this article that I found in America, the Job Review, what will happen to the people who are homeless when the COVID-19 crisis continues? So, as you go through the article, as you can see these folks, as they're all laid out here inside of, where's this located? This is in New Orleans, New York, and they all are out here having to deal with this. and there's 550,000 homeless people in the United States that spread of COVID-19. And as you read through the article and start to see how sad this really is and how this really affected them mentally and spiritually, and you start to see these numbers and how critical it is that those who already been out here are going through this. This is saddening to see. There were far too many homeless people on the streets and in the shelter 3 months ago when we do not even know the word COVID-19 set. Margin Silverland. And basically they're talking about a lot of people who already been out here in the streets. They don't understand or never heard of anything of this nature. And now it's becoming a big thing now for them to really be aware of this is happening. And I've been out here and my body has been exposed to these different things. And it's been exposing me that now I have to be aware and vigilant to some of these things. And as I scroll real slowly to give you a chance to read through the whole content of the article, I want you to think about some of these things. How are people coping with it who've been out in the homelessness for all this time? How is their immune system? Are they safe? How can they practice social distancing doing this whole idea? They're out there in the prime of the disease. A lot of us are so blessed to be able to have a roof over our head, clothes on our back, shoes on our feet, somewhere to lay our head. And a lot of these folks do not have that because why? Things happen, life happens, and challenges happen in their life that cause them to lose sight on things that are a need in their lives. And now they're in the heart of this pandemic. They're in the heart of this disease. So they're exposed to all kind of people. They're taking it. They're not handling it very well. They're not receiving it very well. They are not satisfied. And it just doesn't, it's just not a good situation right now. So as I move on to the next point of this presentation, I'm going to show you the video footage of this. This video here is in California, and it's going to kind of talk to you about what's going on here. All right, everybody. In California, basically talking about some of the content that is really being explained during the whole pandemic and how the homelesses are really taking this and going through this. This is in Kenner County in California. And they're just basically explaining to people how they're feeling and how they're dealing with this. This is absolutely heartbreaking to see this. And as I go a little bit further, they're talking about this. California has real high numbers. I'm just gonna put it out there in the atmosphere. Their numbers are extremely high. And to understand California to be a place that is really big in certain part, it's so many people that can't survive because the way of living is too much. And they can't survive. And it's just not a good look in California, from my perspective. The next video is in Southwest Florida. All right, let me get back to the beginning. All right, as they talked about the footage in Florida, yet again, it's a difficult challenge. This is some very, very painful and heartful stuff to look at and to see that this is continuing to going on and even a lot worse during the pandemic. So let me go ahead and share this last video right here, and this one's out of New York.
Is that an old video?
I believe so. So as I look at the footage of the pandemic and how they're talking about some of the challenges they're facing during this, it's just sad to see this. It really is. What I wanted to do is I wanted to go back over the other two videos just in case you may not hear the volume. I want to kind of go back over them and have the closed captions so you can read it. All right, I'm gonna go back to the other video, and oh, they don't have a fortunately, they don't have a closed caption for this one. So as you can see with three of the contents that were talked about, California was talking about their challenges, Florida was talking about it, New York and other different places were talking about some of the challenges that they're having during and took for this pandemic to really focus on the homelessness in our society thoroughly and how to help these folks get to a safe haven so they don't have issues continuously. So as I move on to my next slide, I'm going to go ahead to the different link. I'm going to go ahead and get to my next website. This one is called Homelessness Person and Isolation Central Positive Testing for COVID-19 and Winnipeg. So this was posted this week, I believe, June 16th, the article talks about. So in this article is basically talking about Winnipeg test positive for COVID-19, the organization that runs is saying One person in the 39-bed isolated central on Saginaw Avenue received a positive result while staying at the central, saying Sydney Titus, a spokesman of the Main Street Project. So this organization had people staying there, and one person became exposed to the COVID-19. And with that being said, she basically didn't want to get in further details of the patient's conditions and how this has affected people in this particular location that they're in. And then the article goes in detail about the doctor, chief public health officer said the Friday's case was a woman in her 30s who recently traveled from Oregon and was self-isolated. Rossi declined to confirm, however, that anyone experiencing homelessness has tested positive for COVID-19 because they're already out there. So their immune system has been exposed to this deadly disease. And it goes on to talk about all of these things and all of these challenges and all these things that they're facing. And as you can go through the article and read it and really start to see, man, this is really bad. I thought the stuff that I was going through in my household was some stuff. This is stuff right here that's a whole new level of thinking. And when you look at these numbers and look at these things, you really should like say, okay, I'm grateful. I'm in a place where I have a place where I can shelter myself and protect myself. In these cases, they're looking for available places and resources and things to help them to get better, get the medical attention, get the needs that need to be helpful to help them get to the right area. And it's a challenge to try to put all of these ducks in one order. And it's a difficult task, and it's a difficult thing for anybody to have to face right now at this very moment. And when you think about these things, you start to say, man, I feel like my life is crazy. These people are here simply exposed to this thing. So as you read here, this is in Canada, vulnerable to the pandemic and left out of government planning. In Toronto, 2 men died of COVID-19 and 18 were affected in an outbreak at a single shelter. In the end of the last month, more than 450 cases of COVID-19 in the city have been linked to shelters, and the city agreed to use its best effort to make shelters safer following legal procedures initiated by public interest groups. So when you look at these, everybody, and start to identify, like, wow, this happened in Toronto, Canada. 2 men died of COVID-19, 18 were affected in a single shelter alone. So that goes to show that the shelter has a lot of things that is not properly operated because everybody's stuck in one building and there's no social distancing going on. And that's a primary risk because people are coughing, people are exposed, things are being put out there, and they're not able to really initiate the transformation of transitioning a safe haven because there's so many people coming into the shelter and there's so many people are touching and breathing and coughing and sneezing. So it is a very deadly and annoying thing that's happening right now at this very moment. It really is. And as you go on to the article, it's just becoming more challenging and more difficult and more absorbing to read this information and see that, hey, I am blessed. I am blessed to the Most High that I don't have to be in this situation. So a lot of us are sitting here complaining, and a lot of us are sitting right here talking about, I don't want to be stuck in the house. Imagine yourself in their shoes, being in a shelter, being somewhere where you don't want to be, somewhere where you are exposing your body. You're somewhere where you're around people who have been all over the place, and they're in the heart of this disease that can take them out at any given moment. This is sad. This is horrible. This is absolutely absurd. And it's really bad to be in a situation like this. And you have to be blessed. You have to be awarded. You have to be understanding that this is a challenge every single day of their lives. So I move on to the next article. And this article talks about as COVID-19 surges among San Francisco homeless, doctors face difficult choices. And as in this article was done April 11, 2020, and as they're reading, and it's talking about San Francisco, and they're talking about a doctor named, safe name Kathy Brooks took pride in caring for the city's most vulnerable patients. About the pandemic really being like, ooh-wee, it's stressful in the city, resources are stretching it to a limit where it's causing things to be very unease, very out of order, and it's really making a mess. And there's 800 cases known in the city, and 600 have been 600, excuse me, 68 have been reported, and it's causing a strain. And this is back in April 11th, so we're like 2 months, or actually, yeah, 2 months of this going on. And the numbers are probably even higher since this article was made in San Francisco. And things are opening up, so it's going to be more cases and more fatalities. And as you read along the article and start to see these numbers and start to really like, dang, I didn't know it was that bad. Yes, homelessness has been an epidemic for a very long time, but it's even getting worse now that they're exposed to this COVID-19 and they don't have the right resources and the right way to be sheltered from this. And they're in the midst of this, and this is a bad, bad look for them because a lot of them don't want to be in these situations. They want to be somewhere to be healthy. They want to be sheltered. They want to be taken in and put in a place that will keep them from this disease. By them being stuck in a very difficult situation, they are in a place that they have no option but to risk their lives. And it is heartbreaking and so hurtful to see these content happen. And they're losing their lives one by one, and most of them are being tested positive for COVID-19 by being in the heart of it. And as you read through this article, you start to say, man, I didn't know it was that bad. No, take time out and open your eyes. So now the article that I'm getting ready to share with you right now is in Palm Beach County. Donation food feeding homeless during the pandemic. So they're talking about, and this article was March 31st, excuse me. So as you looked at the video, I wasn't expecting the video to pop up on the website, but that was good to kind of give you insight about what the article is talking about and how a guy who was once homeless is out there giving back because he knows what it likes to be out there and exposed to the public eye and not having somewhere to go and somewhere to sleep and somewhere to clean themselves and taking each and one day at a time. So he's giving back and he's doing it with the heart of gold and he's doing it selflessly. He's bringing humanity into this. And it's beautiful to be selfless, bringing humanity to it, and just knowing how these people are feeling at this very moment. And as you go through the article and read basically what is being said, and it's basically what the video is talking about, basically what the article is saying too, how they pick up 100 to 150 meals and take it out and feed out the populations. And they're helping those who are laid off in the process too. So they're helping both the homeless as well as those who have been laid off and lost so many things in this giving time. So as you go through the article, ladies and gentlemen, you can just see what's really being said here. Man, this is a lot of content to absorb and a lot of stuff that we can see. And it's sad. It really is. All right. Let me get to my next article. So this here is May 4th, 2020, and it's talking about, I'm sorry about all the pop, well, when you have advertisements trying to get their money, they do what they got to do, right? So May 4th, 2020, This is talking about FSU University Christy E. Lynn College of Nursing has joined the front lines of nurse and healthcare workers working to combat the spread of COVID-19 or coronavirus. And she's basically out here doing her services, and she's basically out there doing testing in local places. And this looks like the Northwest neighborhood in West Palm Beach. And as it talks about this, everything popping up that don't need to be popping up today. And I'm gonna keep talking. So basically, Edwards and Chambers recently collaborated with the Northwest Community Health Ally Board to distribute Essence resources during the pandemic. So the people at Florida Atlantic University went out in the community, and this article was May 4, which is a month ago, and they went out and just to help, and they noticed many homeless and low income sitting around together without any face cover. So they took it upon themselves to just go out and be a blessing to them. Do you not know when you do a little bit of things to impact people's lives, that put a smile and put a joy in their spirit, because they don't know what's going to happen to them each and every day of their lives. And when they look at somebody come there and just give them a token of love, a token of appreciation, it's not even about the money. It's the fact that you took time out of your busy schedule to volunteer and serve and treat them like the adult and human being that they deserve to be treated. They did not get treated like they were animals. They were treated like you wanted to be treated. True, honest respect, and they went out and did it. And they did it in a way that say, hey, there is still selfless people out there. There's still people who really care about the well-beings of other people's lives and humans' lives. And when you see these things, you start to say, man, let me see what I can do to make a difference in somebody else's life. That is absolutely amazing, everybody. Absolutely amazing. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to my next screen. All right. So here we go, everybody. So I have another article that I want to share with you guys. And this is an article in The Guardian. And all these pop-ups just gonna pop up, and you know how that goes. So, with that being said, over 1,000 prisoners leavers left homeless, aiming pandemic of OG figures show. Numbers released sleeping roughly in England and Wales of governments to ramp up funding. So basically, those prisoners who were released into a homelessness in the height of the corona pandemic in England and Wales, figures show prompted the government to increase funding for accommodating for prison leaders. So this is talking about the prisoner aspect of homelessness, how some of the prisoners, it looks like in England and Wales, were released and they were out homeless. They had nowhere to go. And it shows 840 men and 89 women and 85 young adults ages 18 to 24 were released into a rough sleep or other forms of homelessness between March 23rd and when the lockdown was imposed and April 30th. A further 1,209 men, women, and young adults were released with unknown circumstances for accommodating in the same period. Brown, the shadow minister for prisons, everything want to pop up on this website, y'all. For prisons and probation said homeless for prisoners leavers prevent rehabilitation, driving, and reoffending, and is an obvious public health danger during the pandemic. If prisoners leave, do not have a decent place to stay, they do not get a second chance, and public aren't protected. The government must guarantee all the prisoners leave are provided with the right support to break the cycle of reoffending, not just during the current crisis, but permanently. In late March, the government asked local officials in England to house all rough sleepers and those hostile and night shelters. By mid-April, there were still multiple warnings over the rise to rough sleepers for COVID-19. So where this article is coming from England. And as you see the numbers rise, these are prisoners who just got recently out and they had nowhere to go, and they're basically put out of society. And in the middle of this pandemic, this is what they're experiencing right now. So what's going on with the ones in the United States? I didn't see any articles about how they're put out in the open and what's their status of living. I know I see articles about the prisoners getting out, and then there's the epidemic of the prison systems being exposed to COVID-19 and how the numbers are climbing in some of the facilities they have, but I haven't heard of any homeless prisoners exposed to this virus once they get released. And I haven't heard any articles or known of any. And if I do, I'll make sure I make that another webinar to talk about. But this is first for me to see this happen in the United Kingdom and how many deaths. And it's like 300,460, 1,218, and 2,288 cases. England has 158,000, Scotland 15,718, 14,970, and NI has 4,863. These numbers are significantly high and apparently in the UK. And I didn't realize how high they were. And as you read through the article and start to see, like, dang, these are, yeah. And this is the ones who released out of prison. Here, y'all. Yeah. And just keep going through the article. It's a lot of content. Okay. So as I get to my last point, here's an article from New York City. All right, COVID-19 tore through New York homeless shelters, but residents were kept in the dark. So as you read this article, these pop-ups are really annoying. This is somebody showing a picture of people who are homeless sleeping on the staircases and on the floor. Keep in mind, there is nothing social distancing. They are all packed up in one by one. And you can see that the person who is showing this footage is not very pleased, like I'm not very pleased. And it's hurtful to see that they were not aware of the protocols and were kept in the dark by this. And being exposed to this is the most scariest thing for anybody to be exposed to. Now, I'm talking about the nursing home, the home adults, the New York Housing Authority, and the correctional facilities. And now they're talking about it. And now I'm seeing an article now about this in the correctional facilities now. Before, when I looked at the other article, I didn't get obtaining information. So now I see it firsthand in this X article. That goes to show there's a real big issue that's going on in the homelessness. In this society, it's a real big deal. The homelessness has been a big deal when COVID-19 wasn't around. Now it's even humongous because resources are being stretched out and they're running out of options and running out of places for people to go. So people are sitting out here in these streets sleeping. The shelters are overwhelming. There's no place for them to sleep. The place is not health efficient, and the rates are high. It's absolutely saddened. And they said the number of COVID-19 infection and death is individual facilities followed by public pressure. And this is the article, and they're talking about the Governor Andrew Cuomo and Mayor Bill de Blasio. And they're talking about this issue in New York City now. This is the United States. The other one I was talking about was in a whole nother country. So what's the deal? More resources, more things should be open. People need to open up their eyes and realize there's a real issue, and they have to just open it up and just see what it do. And then the more people that you open your facilities up to help them and help them to be safe, the less death that happens in the process. All right, let me click here this article. But before I do that, I want to scroll down so you can read a little bit more of this and show you this is what is going on. And this is homeless people were packed in the 30th Street men's shelter in Manhattan. That's not good. And this is from April 12th to June 14th. Yes, more cases. It's 60%. And then it's like 167%. And it keeps climbing. And it's getting higher. And it's like physicians and healthcare physicians in New York have questioned the score of the city available data on the margin of COVID-19. And it's just like more and more. And some are sent to the hotels. And it's like 1,012 coronavirus infection in the city shelter system. And it's like 17,500 single adults alone. And as you go further and further, I'm gonna go down. My mouse don't want to be great, y'all. And you keep going and looking at this. You're like, dang, remarkable. Yes, it is. It's something else. Let me use this because because this mouse want to get weird on me all of a sudden. So as I go through and let you kind of read through this is absolutely berserk. Yeah. I'm gonna go back to the article about the correctional facilities, and let you kind of read through that. And as you can see, this man he's 31 years old, been staying at the Armor Shelter in Oregon, and since June 12th, and he's just like, yeah, you can see it in his face. And he said the conditions are worse. And he said they're worse than jail here. Read it. I'm going slow so everybody can read the content. As I do this webinar, I want y'all to think about some of this stuff and think about the conditions and how bad this is. And this is in New York City, everybody. Look at it. This shows a photo of May 15th. They say in New York City, 89% of the people sleeping in shelters are Black or Latina, according to the Coalition for the Homeless. Yeah, it's a lot. And by you sharing bathrooms and doing all that, there's not a lot of sanitation being done properly. So as I go back to the article of the correctional facilities, it just breaks my heart to see this. And let me go to the correctional facility. I don't really have to do another presentation then for this one. It basically took me. Perfect. Thank you. So as you can see, the facilitation, well, you know what? I'm going to do another one because I feel like this really needs to be talked about a little bit more. And this is the incarceration, and this was dated June 10th. And these are the cases. And they had about 16 deceased, 513 positive, 45 pending, 735, 477 recovered. So 16 deaths that happened in these different correctional. And this is the New York City, everybody. And these are the numbers, as you can see. I'm gonna let you look in the entirety of it. All right. So as I end this presentation, everybody, I have a question I want to leave to you. What should be done to help the homelessness during the coronavirus disease pandemic? Continue homeless services during community spread of COVID-19 is critical. Make plans to maintain service for all people experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Furthermore, clients who are positive for COVID-19 needs to have access to services in safe places, separated from others who are not infected. To continue facilitating continuous services, community coalitions and such identify resources to support people sleeping outside, as well as an additional temporary housing, including sites with individual rooms that are able to provide appropriate services, supplies, and staffing. Thank you for watching my webinar. So everybody, as I stop my screen, I want you to think about some of these things that I showed in this webinar for the homeless in our society today. Some of the things that you've seen, some of the things that you're feeling. As I close this webinar, I want you to think about how and what you can do to impact at this given time. What did you see that you can bless somebody's life? What can you do to say something to put a smile on their face? Think about being that person to go out and just do a token of love. Do your good deeds anytime you have a chance to, because you never know if somebody around you will be in that circumstance. Be grateful, be appreciative, and be mindful of things that happen in this life. Again, my name is Remarkable, Queen of Inspiration, and that is the conclusion of the webinar of Homeless in Our Society, Volume 2.